My fiancée left me for another man. A year later, she found me and wanted me back. But she didn't expect what I'd become. The break that wasn't. My fiancée asked me to take a break because she met another guy. I packed 2 suitcases, changed my number, and moved 3 states away. A year later, she found me and wanted to come back. That's the headline. The twist? I'm writing this as a husband who learned, after the reunion, that the break was just act 1 of a much bigger story. I'm Jake, 30. My wife, yes, wife now, is Sophie, 28. Back then she called it space to find myself, swore I was the love of her life, promised there was no one else. 2 weeks later, a buddy sent me a grainy photo, Sophie kissing a tall guy outside a bar. His name was Ethan. She said it was a goodbye kiss, and I was controlling. I didn't argue. I sublet my place, drove until the radio turned to static, and started over in a little coastal city where no one knew my last name. That year saved me and hollowed me out at the same time. I ran trails, learned to cook food that wasn't beige, picked up a secondhand camera, and taught myself how to sleep without waiting for the sound of her key in the door. I told myself love isn't supposed to feel like holding your breath. It finally didn't. Then one Saturday morning in fall, my doorbell rang. There she was, same perfume, different haircut, eyes doing that apologetic shine I used to fall for. "Hi, Jake," she said, like we'd just missed a week, not a year. "I've been looking everywhere." She told me Ethan wasn't what she thought, that none of it meant anything, that she'd grown up. She laughed when I stood there silent. "You're still stubborn," she said, like it was cute. I should have closed the door. Instead, I made coffee and listened. She spun memories like silk. First dates. Fireworks on a rooftop. My old hoodie she somehow still had. Then she dropped to her knees on my kitchen tile, hands folded, voice shaking. "Please, Jake, I ruined everything. I want to come home." Home. The word did a slow, dangerous lap around my chest. I told her I needed time. She nodded, grateful, teary, then slipped. "I told your mom I'd convince you." "My mom?" I asked. Sophie blinked. "She gave me your town. She said you always forgive." That's how my wife-to-be walked back into my life, through my mother's hope and my weakest adjective. Forgiving. I let her stay on the couch. We talked too late. She sighed at all the right places. When she finally fell asleep, I sat across from her with my camera in my hands and thought, if this is a second chance, why does it feel like a rerun? I didn't know it yet, but the real story hadn't started. It would begin with a message from a stranger, a receipt in a shoebox, and a child's bracelet I'd find in the wrong glove compartment. 2 weeks after Sophie showed up at my door, things looked picture perfect again. She moved slowly back into my life, like a ghost trying to remember where the walls were. She'd make breakfast, hum while folding laundry, and cry at random moments, whispering, "I can't believe you're giving me another chance." I wanted to believe her. God help me, I did. I told myself people change. She cooked my favorite meals, scrolled through Zillow like we were house hunting again, and said things like, "You've always been my home, Jake." It almost worked. Then one Tuesday night, I got a message from an unknown number. Just 5 words. "You deserve to know the truth." Attached was a single photo, Sophie and the same guy, Ethan, sitting in a restaurant. Her hand on his thigh. The timestamp? 2 months ago. Long after she said they were done. I stared at the screen until my chest went numb. When I showed her the message the next morning, she didn't even flinch at first. Just blinked, then said in this calm, rehearsed tone, "Jake, you're being manipulated. He's obsessed with me." "Obsessed?" I asked. The message didn't come from him. That got her. Her face froze. "Then who?" "I was hoping you'd tell me." She sighed, rubbed her temples, and started crying. "Jake, please, you promised to trust me. I'm trying to fix this, but people won't let me move on from my mistakes." It was the way she said people, like there were so many. That night, while she slept, I opened her purse. I didn't feel proud doing it. I just felt desperate. Inside was a second phone. Cheap, prepaid, the kind people buy when they don't want to be found. I unlocked it easily. She'd used her birthday. Dozens of texts filled the screen. "Ethan, he really took you back?" "Sophie, yes, but I'm leaving soon. Just need time." "Ethan, you said that last time." "Sophie, it's complicated." Complicated. The word burned through me. I put the phone back and waited until morning. She woke up smiling, wearing my old hoodie, and kissed my cheek. "Coffee?" she asked. Sure, I said, forcing calm. But before that, maybe you can tell me how complicated it is to delete your boyfriend's number before moving in with your fiancé again? The mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. Then the mask dropped, and she went straight into defense mode. You went through my things. Answer the question, I said. She started crying again, louder this time, like volume might replace honesty. Jake, you don't understand. It wasn't serious. He was just comfort when you left. I didn't know how to stop. You mean you didn't want to stop? She shook her head frantically. It's over now, I swear. He means nothing. But when I picked up the broken mug, I noticed something glittering beneath the pieces, a hotel keycard. Same chain where she and I used to stay for anniversaries. And written on it, in blue pen, Sophie plus C. She dropped to her knees, sobbing, clutching at my hands. Please, Jake, don't do this. Don't throw us away again. I just stared down at her and realized something brutal. She wasn't crying because she'd lost me. She was crying because she'd been caught again. And this time, I wasn't the same forgiving man who'd walked away quietly. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the keycard. I just stood there watching her cry, her mascara streaking down her cheeks like she'd rehearsed it. It was the same scene from a year ago, same words, same trembling hands. But this time, I saw the performance. Jake, I swear, she said between sobs. It's not what you think. I met him once after we broke up, just to end things properly. I tilted my head. Properly? In a hotel room? Her face changed fast. Grief to anger, anger to arrogance. You're twisting everything. You always do this. You dig until you find something to be mad about. I almost laughed. You literally wrote his initial on a hotel key, Sophie. You could have at least used a fake name. She stood up suddenly, her voice sharp now. Fine. Yes, I saw him again. But it meant nothing. I needed closure. You wouldn't understand. That word again, closure. It had become her moral hall pass. You needed closure with him, I said quietly, while staying in my house, sleeping in my bed, telling my mother you wanted to marry me again. Her mouth opened, then closed. No words, just the sound of her breathing quick and uneven. Then she tried a new angle. Jake, I love you. You're the one I chose to come back to. Because he dumped you? I asked. She froze. That's not. Emma told me. I said. Your sister. He left you. You didn't end anything. You just needed somewhere soft to land. She blinked, realization dawning that her last lifeline was gone. Then, without warning, she dropped to her knees again, grabbing my hand. Please, Jake. Please. I messed up. I don't even know why I do these things. I was scared you'd moved on, and I wanted to feel wanted again. You were, I said quietly. By someone else. She shook her head violently. No, by you. I wanted you. I just didn't know how to fix what I broke. Her tears fell onto my hands, hot and shaky, but they didn't move me anymore. I saw her clearly now, not as the woman I loved, but as the woman who'd learned to weaponize remorse. I pulled my hand away slowly. You don't want love, Sophie. You want attention, and I'm finally done giving it to you. Her crying stopped instantly. The silence between us was almost physical, heavy enough to choke on. Then her face hardened. You think you're better than me, she hissed. You think leaving will make you some hero? No, I said. Just free. That night, I packed what little she'd brought, her clothes, her makeup bag, that cheap burner phone, and left them by the door. She screamed that I was ruining her life, that I'd regret it, that no one would love me like she did. I smiled. I hope not. She stormed out just before midnight. The next morning, her mother called, voice sharp and cold. Jake, I heard what you did. She's devastated. What I did? I asked. She said you threw her out without warning. That you were cruel. Then maybe she left out the part about the hotel, I said. Silence. Then, in a low voice, her mother sighed. You're not the first man she's done this to. And that's when it hit me. Sophie's lies didn't start with me. I was just the latest chapter in a book she'd been rewriting her whole life. But the difference now? I was finally done reading. After she left, the silence was so complete that I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock, ordinary sounds that somehow felt brand new. For the first time in years, there were no fights, no apologies rehearsed in my head. Just peace, thin and fragile, but real. That lasted 2 days. Then her family started calling. Her mother tried guilt first. You're abandoning her when she's at her lowest. Her father followed with pity. She's not well, Jake. You know how emotional she gets. And then came the strangest one, her older brother, Nick, who I barely knew. Between you and me, he said, you're not the first guy she's tried this with. She has patterns. I didn't ask for details, but he gave them anyway. There had been another man before me, one she'd been engaged to for 3 months, a firefighter named Connor. She'd cheated on him with his best friend, told everyone Connor had trust issues, and somehow walked away looking like the victim. It was the same story, different cast. The realization hit hard. I'd built a life with someone who had rehearsed betrayal long before I arrived. All those tears, all those speeches about being broken but trying, they weren't moments of honesty. They were tactics, and I'd fallen for them every time. That night, I decided I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to understand it. I started writing everything I remembered, the early red flags, the manipulation, the apologies that always came with conditions. I didn't plan to share it. It was for me, a record of what happens when love blinds you to patterns you should have seen. 2 weeks later, her sister Emma called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. She's been telling people you abused her, Emma said quietly. Emotionally, not physically, but still. She's making you sound like a monster. I laughed bitterly. Of course she is. She's rewriting the ending. Emma hesitated. There's more. She's seeing Ethan again. I thought you should know. I thanked her, hung up, and felt a strange calm. She wasn't haunting me anymore. She was predictable. A loop I'd finally stepped out of. The next day, I saw my mom. She'd been the one who gave Sophie my new address months ago, back when she thought she was helping. Now, guilt lined her face. I'm so sorry, Jake, she said, clutching my hand. I thought she was lost, not dangerous. She's not dangerous, I said softly. She's addicted to being adored. Mom nodded, tears in her eyes. You were too good for her. That's what broke her. I shook my head. No, Mom. That's what fed her. That night, I opened the document where I'd been writing everything down and gave it a title, The House of Mirrors. Because that's what it had been, loving her. Every reflection of warmth was just another illusion she'd created to keep me staring. But not anymore. I wasn't the man staring into her reflection now. I was the one walking out of the glass maze, blinking hard in the sunlight, ready to see what was real again. For a month, things stayed quiet. I was sleeping better, eating normally, even laughing again. I got back into photography, started running along the river after work, and caught myself thinking, maybe this is what peace actually feels like. Then, right when life started to settle, the ghost knocked on my door again. It was a Thursday night. I'd just come home from a jog when someone rang the bell. I opened the door, towel around my neck, and there she was, Sophie. Same perfume, same practiced sadness in her eyes. Hi, she said softly, like we were still sharing Sunday breakfasts. Can we talk? I almost closed the door right then. But a part of me, the same part that once believed people could change, hesitated. 5 minutes, I said. She looked thinner, makeup gone, hair messy. I'd almost believe she was broken if I didn't know how good she was at disguises. She stepped inside, glancing around like she was remembering the space. You've redecorated, she said quietly. It doesn't feel like our place anymore. It's my place now, I replied. She winced, then sighed. I deserve that. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she looked up, eyes glossy. I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. For all of it. Ethan, the lies, everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. I studied her face, searching for sincerity. There was something different this time. Less performance, more exhaustion. But then again, exhaustion looks a lot like regret when you're good at acting. You said that before, I reminded her. Right before you went back to him. She shook her head. Not this time. He's gone. I ended it. I almost asked why, but she answered before I could. He cheated on me. With someone from his gym. I guess karma works fast. There it was, poetic justice, except it didn't make me feel good. It just felt sad. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. These are the photos we took on our engagement trip. I found them when I moved. I thought you'd want them. I didn't take them. You can keep them. She nodded slowly, then whispered, You really won't ever forgive me, will you? I took a deep breath. Forgiveness isn't the problem, Sophie. Trust is, and that doesn't grow back. Tears welled up again. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Jake. I sighed. Then you should have treated me like it. She looked down, biting her lip, then did what she always did when cornered. Fell to her knees, crying. Please, Jake. Let me fix it. I'll do therapy. I'll change my number. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't shut the door on me again. This time, I didn't pull her up. I just stood there, staring at the woman who'd burned my life down and still thought she could rebuild it on the ashes. Sophie, I said quietly, you're not the one who needs fixing anymore. I am, and I'm doing fine. She looked up, stunned. I walked to the door, opened it, and nodded toward the driveway. Goodbye, Sophie. Please don't come back. When the door clicked shut, I exhaled. No anger, no heartbreak, just a clean, quiet relief. That night, I sat on the couch scrolling through old photos until I landed on one of me smiling at the beach, before her, before the mess. I set it as my phone background. Because that version of me, he was coming back. After that night, Sophie finally vanished. No calls, no texts, no guilt-soaked letters taped to the door. For a while, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. A dramatic email, a mutual friend trying to mediate, something. But there was nothing. It felt strange, that kind of quiet. Like standing in a house after a storm. Everything still upright, but the air still humming with what had been torn loose. My mom called the following weekend. I heard she came by, she said carefully. She did, I admitted. And she's gone again. Mom sighed. You did the right thing. I just wish I hadn't made it easier for her to find you the first time. You were trying to help, I said. She's the one who weaponized kindness. Dad, who'd been listening in the background, spoke up. Son, some people love the chase more than the catch. Let her chase someone else. That night, I sat on the porch, staring up at the stars, and thought about how much energy I'd wasted trying to prove myself to someone who was addicted to drama. I wasn't even angry anymore, just tired. A week later, I got a message from her sister, Emma. She's leaving the state, Jake. She says she's starting over. She told me to tell you she's sorry. I read it twice, then deleted it. Not out of spite. I just didn't need her ghosts in my phone anymore. With Sophie officially out of my life, I threw myself into new things. I signed up for a local hiking club, joined a photography meetup, even started volunteering at a community center on weekends. It was strange how full my days felt when I wasn't orbiting someone else's chaos. Then came something I didn't expect, peace that stayed. It wasn't loud or euphoric. It was small things, waking up rested, eating without a knot in my stomach, laughing at things without forcing it. Even my coworkers noticed. You look lighter, one said. Like you dropped 100 pounds. I smiled. Something like that. One afternoon, while sorting photos from a recent hike, I came across an old folder I'd never deleted, pictures from my engagement trip with Sophie. My first instinct was to trash it immediately, but then I stopped. I opened one image, the two of us standing by a lake. I studied my own face, not hers. I looked happy, but in a way that wasn't real. It was a man trying to look like he had everything under control while quietly drowning. I deleted the folder and whispered, goodbye. Later that night, I drove to the ocean. The air was cold and clean, and the horizon was a thin silver line under the fading sky. I took a photo, not of myself, not of anyone else, just the water meeting the light. That shot became my favorite picture I've ever taken. I titled it Peace After Fire, because that's exactly what it felt like. The calm that comes when you stop waiting for someone to save you and finally realize you were capable of saving yourself all along. 6 months passed, and I could finally say it without flinching. I was happy. Not the fragile, conditional kind of happy that depended on someone else's approval, but the steady, quiet version that shows up when you start liking your own company again. I'd moved into a smaller apartment near the coast, the kind with creaky floors and sunlight that poured in like forgiveness. I filled the walls with photos, the ocean, sunsets, forest trails. Not a single picture of Sophie. Not because I hated her, but because that life felt like someone else's story. One weekend, my parents came to visit. Mom brought homemade cookies, and Dad helped me hang a few frames. At one point, he looked around and said, "You've built yourself a good little place here, son. Looks like peace finally fits you." "Yeah," I said, smiling. It took a while to learn how to live without walking on eggshells. That night, as we ate dinner, Mom asked, "Do you ever think about dating again?" I shrugged. "Sometimes, but I'm not chasing it. I used to think love meant losing yourself in someone else. Now I think it's about finding someone who doesn't make you disappear." They both nodded, and I realized how proud they were. Not because I'd moved on, but because I'd survived. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. I got an email from a small travel magazine I'd submitted photos to months before. They wanted to publish my work. One of the images they chose was peace after fire. The editor wrote, "There's something honest in this shot. You can tell it was taken by someone who's lived through something." That line hit harder than I expected. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. After the issue came out, I started getting messages from people who'd read the caption I'd written under the photo. Sometimes peace isn't something you find. It's what's left when you stop holding on to what hurt you. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Claire, a photographer from Portland. She wrote, "That line, it felt like someone finally put my story into words. I went through something similar. Thanks for sharing." We started talking. At first, just about photography, lenses, lighting, coastal weather. Then about life, how we both had our scars but weren't ashamed of them anymore. She was kind in a way that didn't demand anything back. For the first time since Sophie, I didn't feel the need to prove I was enough. I could just be. One evening, Claire sent me a message. "You should come shoot the northern coast sometime. I'll show you the best spots." I hesitated, then smiled and typed back, "I think I will." That night, as I packed my camera bag, I realized something simple but profound. The best revenge isn't proving your worth to someone who broke you. It's building a life so peaceful they no longer exist in it. And for the first time, I was ready for whatever, and whoever, came next. The drive up the coast felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. I rolled the windows down, let the cold salt air whip through the car, and watched the ocean flash silver through the trees. Every mile felt like leaving a little more of the past behind. Claire lived in a small town perched on a cliff above the water, one of those places that feels like it exists outside of time. When I finally met her, she was exactly how she'd sounded in our messages: calm, grounded, and quietly funny. Her laugh was soft, the kind that didn't need to fill silence to be genuine. We spent the first day exploring the coast, cameras in hand, talking between shots. The tide pools reflected the sky like glass. At one point, she crouched to take a photo of a cracked shell and said, "It's still beautiful, even broken." That line stayed with me. We ended the day sitting on driftwood, sharing coffee from a thermos while the sky turned orange. She asked, "Do you ever think you'll fall in love again?" I took a long breath. "I used to think love was something that happened to me," I said. "Now I think it's something you choose, one small moment at a time." She smiled. "That's the healthiest thing I've heard in a while." That evening, she invited me to a small art show she helped organize. Local painters, photographers, sculptors. My photo piece after fire hung on one wall. People actually stopped to look at it. I overheard one woman whisper, "It's sad, but freeing." Claire nudged me. "That's you, sad, but freeing." I laughed. "I'll take it." After the show, we walked along the boardwalk. The wind was sharp, and she slipped her hand into mine without hesitation. It wasn't fireworks or instant passion. It was steady warmth, like finding home where you didn't expect it. Later, back at her place, we sat by a small fire pit in the backyard. She told me about her past, a marriage that ended when her husband chose ambition over her, years of feeling like she was never enough. It was strange how much of her story echoed mine, like two different songs that shared the same chords. When it was my turn, I told her about Sophie, about the break, the lies, the hotel keycard. She didn't interrupt or look away. When I finished, she just said, "You must have loved her deeply to have been hurt that badly." "I did," I said quietly. "But I think I mistook attachment for love. Real love doesn't feel like panic." We sat there in silence for a while, the fire crackling between us. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Maybe love isn't about finding someone who never hurts you. Maybe it's about finding someone who never makes you doubt your peace." The next morning, I took one last photo before heading home. The sunrise over the cliffs, the world caught between darkness and light. I titled it "The Edge of Something New," because that's what it felt like, not an ending, not a sequel, just a beginning I'd finally earned. When I got back home, everything felt different. The same streets, the same house, the same ocean outside my window, but the world looked bigger somehow. It wasn't that I'd fallen in love again, it was that I'd fallen back into life. Claire and I kept in touch. No pressure, No promises. Just easy, unforced connection. Voice messages about lighting tips. Photos of the sky at different times of day. A few quiet check-ins that somehow meant more than any grand declarations ever could. Meanwhile, I started getting offers for small photography gigs, family portraits, engagement shoots, even a travel blog that wanted to feature my coastal work. The funny part? They wanted me to write captions. Words had always been my refuge, but now they became my bridge. People resonated with what I'd been through without even knowing the story behind it. One of the editors messaged me after reading my latest piece. "You write like someone who's been broken, but not bitter. That's rare." It made me think of Sophie, not with anger, but with clarity. For the first time, her name didn't bring a knot to my chest. It was just a chapter I'd outgrown. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email from her sister, Emma, again. She said Sophie had gotten married to someone new, a guy she'd met during a wellness retreat in Arizona. There was no malice in the message, just a quiet note. "I thought you should know. She still talks about you sometimes, says you were the one who loved her the right way." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because there was nothing left to say. I wished her peace, silently, and let it go. A few months later, I was back on the northern coast visiting Claire. We were walking down a rocky trail when she said, "You seem lighter this time." "I am," I admitted. I stopped waiting for closure. Turns out, peace doesn't come from answers. It comes from acceptance. She smiled. "You sound like someone who finally forgave himself." Maybe I did. We reached the edge of the cliff, the wind fierce and alive. I raised my camera, snapped a photo of the horizon, and caught Claire's reflection in the lens. Her hair tangled in the breeze, eyes bright, a small smile playing at her lips. "Good shot," she asked. "Perfect," I said. That night, I printed it and added it to the wall in my living room, right beside Peace After Fire. 2 photos, one marking the end, one marking the beginning. For a long time, I thought my story ended the day Sophie left. Now I knew the truth. Endings aren't the end. They're just the start of who you're supposed to become. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally becoming that person. The one who could look at the past without pain, the present without fear, and the future without needing it to fix him. It's strange how a year can change everything. 12 months ago, I was waking up every morning with a tight chest and 1,000 what-ifs in my head. Now, I wake up to sunlight on the wall, the sound of waves, and a cat I adopted from the shelter pawing at my camera strap. I still think about how close I came to losing myself trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. It's almost like I'd mistaken endurance for love, as if surviving pain was proof of devotion. It wasn't. It was just me bleeding slowly, calling it loyalty. One evening, Claire and I drove out to a cliff where the horizon looked endless. The sky was doing that golden lavender thing that always makes you quiet. She looked at me and said, "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened?" "All of it." I thought about it. About Sophie, the lies, the humiliation, the long nights of replaying every moment, asking what I could have done differently. Then I shook my head. "No," I said. "If it hadn't happened, I'd still be trying to prove I was enough for someone who never wanted me to be." She smiled softly. "Then maybe she didn't break you. Maybe she built you." "I think she revealed me," I said. After that trip, I started hosting small photography workshops in town, just 5 or 6 people at a time, cameras slung around their necks, chasing light together. Every time someone asked how I got started, I'd just say, "Heartbreak makes you look at the world differently. Sometimes it even helps you see beauty again." My parents came to one of my exhibitions that fall. My mom stood in front of the edge of something new and whispered, "You look free now." "I am," I said. "Finally." She smiled, and for the first time since everything began, I saw pride instead of worry in her eyes. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Claire and I will end up together, maybe not. Maybe love will find me again, or maybe peace is enough. Either way, I'm not chasing or clinging anymore. I'm just living. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the person who hurts you the most is the one who hands you the map back to yourself. So if you're reading this, sitting in the ruins of something you thought would last forever, don't let it make you bitter. Let it make you clear. Because one day, you'll wake up, breathe in the morning air, and realize the betrayal didn't destroy you. It introduced you to the version of yourself that was waiting to be free. I have many other stories,